Hello and welcome all back to Election Time News Australia. Today is Monday, April 21st, 2025, and we'll be looking at the 2025 Australian federal election coming up in just 2.5 weeks from now. Over 18.1 million, just under, 18.1 million people are registered. And we are now looking at the aftermath of the second TV debate between Albanese and Dutton. And so from that, we do have a few updates to go over. Not too much has changed in the polling, but there's still going to be a bit left to look over recently. Election Time News, your one stop for all things elections and politics, from summations to poll reviews and news on elections. Subscribe below for more content like this about American, Canadian, and Australian elections. And remember, there's never a dull moment in politics. So, start things off. We have 150 seats that are up for election, as opposed to 151 from last election. And so, to start off with that, we here have our seats. There are a few vacant seats. I did actually have someone in the comments. I'm going to fill that in really quick. But in the meantime, looking over there at this article done by The Guardian, they go over how they see the debate that happened on Wednesday. It was seen as a draw by quite a few people. So that is Alright, so I got these here. It was seen as a draw of sorts, and so from that, that's really not the sort of thing that Dutton wants to hear, as he is, of course, behind in the polling now. And there's a... Oh, I did not mean to close that. Actually, I closed a tab here. Here's the main overview by Australian YouGov, their projection here. They do now actually have a hung parliament at 2/3 probability almost, nearing there. They still have 50.2 to 49.8, but most likely there's been a few polls out of a few electorates that do have a few things swing towards the coalition in a few seats that do end up making a hung parliament very likely now. Coalition majority up to 2%, Labour majority down to 37.7%. That is down quite a bit. So things are actually looking a bit better as far as that goes. So to start things off, first I'm going to look at these really quick. This is a vacant seat. This is going to be an open one. It does not shut. That's irritating. Alright, well, I'm going to be looking for these real quick, but here are the current projections on Poll Bludger. This is basically a large poll coalescing body, basically, that then makes projections on these things. You can see a few of these competitive seats are a bit towards Labour. Remember, these are the past results projected onto the current map, or the map that's coming up, because of course they redrew some of them and they also got rid of an electorate. But, or if these are actually projections, I'm thinking more that these are probably instead just the current electorate bases. These are basically the more demographics baseline sort of thing, instead of the actual anything based off of opinions or anything along those lines. So that's going to be where those are from. So looking here at the prediction markets. Now, prediction markets in the past have been way more accurate than even quite a few professionals and other predictors as well. Just today, Peter Dutton went up by 3. Not that much has gone into it, only $35,000. So that's probably not all too many people. Only one comment as well. So there's that as well. Looking at an activity, there's really not that much that happened here. Yeah, if you see 32 minutes ago, 100 12 contracts for Yes Peter Dutton were bought, which made his percentage jump up by 3%. So there's a bit of there's not much movement here either. It's not that large of a market, so it's not going to be quite as accurate. But still, we do have a bit of a jump up. The debate was on the 16th. It was probably right around, it was, remember, I am close to 15 hours behind Australia, so for me, it was right around, I remember it was right around 7 a.m. or so. So 10 a.m. here. April 16th was right after where it was, so then there'd be a bit of a delay. But then as you see right after that, you can see about a day afterwards, his odds went up to 83%. It's not 100% proven or provable even in any way that those are at all related, but Albanese is at over 80%. That is relatively close to secured at this point. So that is great news for the Labour Party. Basically along the same lines here, the Labour Party is now officially holding on to their lead here with $71,250. That is twice as much as traded for the prime ministership. They have 78% chance of the Labour Party having the most seats to 0.25%, which doesn't round out, but doesn't round out evenly, and less than 1% for these. 78% for the Labour Party, 24% for the coalition. So things are looking very rough for the coalition. They're not getting any gains whatsoever that they are looking for here. Of course, in these battleground seats, these are the ones that they're hoping to be able to pick up. These ones are close. Looking at like Parramatta, 3 3/4. Getting in at 5. That's 2 1/4. 5. You're getting any under 5 would be very close, right? Here, this one is very close. Dixon might end up actually going to Labour, and if that happens, then Dutton is going to have to leave as leader of the opposition, which would be very difficult. But it's actually the most marginal seat in the state, so that does, of course, put a bit of focus on Queensland. That would be quite a big victory for the Labour Party, even though they do have 77 seats. They have up to 76 for majority, so they don't really have any to lose. But in theory, they could lose one. But if they're able to take out Dutton's seat, then that would be a large that would be a large win and a morale booster of sorts for the Labour Party. And coming into this, by Labour down to 3.3. This is one that most likely are potentially to get back. It could end up being like an Arizona or a Georgia scenario if you want to go based off of American terms here. Swinging to one party, then going back relatively strongly. Now, here you end up with Teal independents, so that's going to be another large factor in this. Now, of course, these are just general independents, all of them Teal independents, as well as people who left their parties. But there's, only a few independents are left at this point, and so it depends on whether they're going to try to actually jump into the official parties, whether they'll be reaccepted or not, whether they will quit. Which means they, of course, have an open seat versus being reelected. I'm going to open that because I already have it open here. And they are still only one seat short here from the YouGov's most recent, I believe this is the most recent MRP, which is a large coalition of predictions and things based off of their polls. So that is still going on 3 weeks old at this point, but yeah, it is because that's still the one that's on their main website. But then, of course, going over to this is going to be giving the edge to the Labor Party, if it comes down to anything like this 51-49 rating right here, if it does come down to something that close, the final little bits of the final boost they might need would most likely come. Now, this is from April 4th, right? 17 days ago. That final boost would probably come from this. Anthony Albanese, 45%. Peter Dutton, 38%. Almost all of these undecideds would have to split for Dutton in order to end up having a lead. This is a 7-point lead. Now, then again, this isn't impossible. It wouldn't be impossible. And it's not, of course, not actually elected. This isn't any sort of prime minister. Who are you going to elect for prime minister? Because that's not how it works. But it could be off that these could be, I don't think it's necessarily the same sort of dynamic, but it could be something like what we saw in 2016. Of course, then the complete dynamics and structure are completely different, but we saw Clinton with like a 6 to 7 point lead against Trump, but most of the undecideds broke for Trump. So the question there becomes, where will that go from there, and then will you end up with a resurgence in the actual votes for the two-party preferred, as well as, the primaries. The primaries don't matter, quite as much, because it's going to end up being the Labor versus the coalition for the most part. But in the two-party preferred, which one's going to end up being? Now, of course, some of these seats are definitely going to end up being one versus the other. Like, Catter is going to win in the seat of Kennedy, of course, and Center Party is going to win in Mayo. But other than that, there's going to be Labor versus coalition in quite a few of these seats. Greens are going to pick up a few, most likely going to be the exact same ones. A few Teal independents might be able to get in there and have an opposition versus one of the other ones, but in a majority of these seats, it's going to be the opposition coalition versus the Labor Party. And so from there, which one's being on top, which one can end up taking out the other at that point, and are Dutton's approval ratings going to go back up? Because -15 is not a number that you want to be going into election night with. You still have a bit of time to pick that up, but that is not what you want to be seeing when you are now halfway through the election season. Thank you all so much for watching. We're going to be going over more of this in the future as well. Still have quite a few videos left to be putting out before the 3rd, so if you are interested in this sort of thing, make sure to subscribe as well if you are in Canadian politics as well as American politics. After the Australian and Canadian elections are over, we're going to be getting back into focusing on American politics, getting on with the 2025 elections there, mainly going to be the elections in Virginia and New Jersey, the governorships races. So, with that in mind, thank you again so much for watching. Have a fantastic rest of your day.